newspaper in Iowa. Do that. Do that, because that's very important. Because if you change one, that one will change another one and the other one. It's a time-consuming, yes, but we should be ready to do that, because, again, remember, the other alternative is again, more killing, more blood, and more innocent people dying as a result of that. And it's sad. It is really sad. Like for example, you know, I don't know how many of you heard of the Goldstone report after Gaza incursion. I mean, it's just like, okay, here he decided to submit that on, if I remember right, September 15th of 2009 to the United Nations, and then here we are expecting the UN and the Security Council to do something about it. Guess what? Well, in 2011, nothing happened. So I think it's very important. It's very important to act and put the pressure on them. A lot of human rights issues, and I think I always tell people, it doesn't matter whether you are white, black, yellow, green, male, female. It doesn't matter. If you stand for human rights, if you stand for democracy, you should stand also for democracy and human rights in Palestine. We should not allow the media or the government to put the Israelis above the law again, and as a result of that, you can do anything you want, but don't ever talk about that. I remember, and I will tell you, I will share with you a very short story here. I'm trying to remember what year, but around 2003, 2004. I don't know how many of you heard the name of, he used to be a senator, Senator Santorum from Pennsylvania. I'm sure maybe you heard of him. Senator Santorum decided in, I think, 2003 or 2004, I don't really remember. He decided to have a bill on the floor of the Senate, and of course, thank God it didn't pass, but if you look at the bill, inside that bill, he was asking to consider anyone as an anti-Semitic and be punished by law if he or she bring Israel into any discussion in any educational institutions in the United States. I don't know how many of you remember that. And I remember working day and night, contacting senators, contacting our members to contact senators to vote against that if that bill came into like a vote. You know, these are the people that we're dealing with. Extremism, it's here. We have it in the United States. You know, and I always tell people, you know, my response when I spoke to the news at that point, I said, you know, I never know that, you know, talking about Israel became more important than the security of the United States for Santorum. I mean, and it was really a major issue that he decided to fight all the way till the end to take it and have it as a law on the Senate floor. So these are the people that we are dealing with. So again, we want you to let them hear your voice. Tell them, we're not asking you to be pro-Palestinian, by the way. Well, not. That's fine. Just be objective. Be objective. Look into different resources, and then make up your mind, and then do what's right. And that's very important. Do what's right. And with that, as I said again, is the website. We go back, you know, some of those visits. Again, some of stuff, again, a lot of stuff is not there yet. But you can email me if you want. If you wanna, if you go here, contact AMPAL. You can again fill anything with a message and submit that, or you can have my email here. You can call me, email me. It's fine with me. I would like to hear from you, just because I do go a lot to different places and talk a lot. So if you just remind me, like in the subject matter, okay, Iowa City or something, so I just remember that. But I would definitely love to hear back from you. As I said, my business cards are there. Make sure you get some before you leave. And with that, I'd rather use the rest of the time for Q&A, if it's possible.
If you could just raise your hand, I'll get around to you.
As Palestinian, we are suffering that since before 1948. And the more I live in the United States, the more I feel there is no hope whatsoever. When the United Nations voted or vetoed anything against Israel, when our children are being killed and our houses being demolished and our olive trees are being uprooted, when I didn't ever hear from anybody in the government or in the Congress or whatever to object. And when they massacred the people in Gaza with all this bombardment, did you think that anybody raised a hand to object here? Are we kidding ourselves? Israel has a special case with the United States. They give them billions and billions of help, military and otherwise, even at the expense of their own people. So what's the hope?
Well, I like to be very hopeful. Even with all the things that you mentioned, I'd like to be very hopeful. But also, I would like to say this. I would like to also take some of this responsibility why Israel is very strong in the United States, especially in the foreign policy for the United States. They are well organized, they work, they have really good representation, and we don't. So I would like, as an objective person, I would like to be responsible also and take some of this responsibility too. And for that reason, I think it is important for us to start organizing. You know, I will tell you one thing. When I established the organization in 2000, I got a couple phone calls from, without mentioning names, from some of the leaders of other NGOs, Arab NGOs in the United States, and say, hey, John, why are you all doing this? You could be part of us. Instead of, hey, John, congratulations, and if you need any support, we will support you. So you see, that's a different thing. When I was back in Palestine last year, I mean, every single government individual that I met with, the Palestinian government, from the Mahmoud Abbas top advisors to his press secretary to even the Mr. Ali Hassan, who is in charge with WAFA, which is the official news agency, Palestinian news agency, they said, John, we are really happy that you established this, because this is the only organization in the United States that only concentrates on the Palestinian question and the Palestinian issue. And I'm very proud to say that we definitely need to organize. I agree with you. Unfortunately, the U.S. put Israel above the law all the time. They veto. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you, as I said, I'm in economics and statistics, so statistics is very important for me. Just to share some of the statistics, recent ones. Since 2000, and we are in 2011, right? The U.S. government used the veto 10 times. 10 times in the Security Council. Guess what? 9 of them against resolutions that condemn the Israeli action. 9 of them. That will tell you something. That should tell us something. But that should tell us that the Israeli lobby is very strong in the United States and very important to work together in order at least to counter that. I myself cannot do that by myself. I cannot. And I wish I will. I look forward to be really as strong as AIPAC in the United States as an organization, but I will never be strong by myself. I will be strong with all of you if you support the organization and if you also stood up with the organization, okay? So these are very important things. So that's very important.
Yeah, I have a couple different questions. When you go to Palestine or when you talk to people there, do they find it frustrating, or do you find it frustrating that Americans have the freedom to organize and speak out and yet don't exercise it very much? My other question is, as an economist, what do you think about the idea of microloans and microlending to help? Is there anything in place to do microloans to help Palestinian people?
Okay. Well, that's a good question. What I will say is the following. First of all, the Arabs in general, and Palestinians specifically, look at the U.S. foreign policy as a double standard policy. So they don't really treat the same issue the same way. So, for example, and I always, and I tell people, I have been all my life involved in politics, but I am against any military, regardless who is doing that, from what side, against any military action. But just to let you know, I mean, a human being is a human being, okay? If that human being is a Palestinian or an Israeli, there's no difference, and should not be a difference between the two. So what we are saying here is that the Palestinians and the Arabs see that double standard foreign policy that creates this kind of sometimes I don't want to say hate, because that's really a strong term to use, but it creates that kind of feeling against, and again, not the U.S. people, not the American people, but against the U.S. foreign policy. I mean, that's very important. Yes, the micro grants and stuff like that, we see that. We see that. I mean, I was in Ramallah, as I said last year, and the USAID, I mean, they are helping. They are giving money. They are supporting some projects. But guess what? The way, again, I'll go back to statistics. The way I look at it, if you look into all the money that they are giving to Palestinian side versus the money that they are giving to the Israelis, if you know the population of each side, it gets, like each side, if we're really serious about a change, the Palestinians, each Palestinian receives out of this money around 1 to 2 pennies. That's all. So we're talking pennies. I mean, that is true, there is a total, but we're talking pennies. But if you go on the Israeli side, on average, we know the amount, we know how many people are Israelis. If you divide that, $10,000 per person, per Israeli. You have $10,000 per Israelis versus pennies on the Palestinian side. So to me, it's a joke. So if we are really to support Palestinians and support the Palestinian people and really develop their infrastructure and the society and so on, definitely we need to do more. But on the other hand, unfortunately, we always threaten the Palestinians that, okay, if you don't do this, we'll cut this money. If you don't do that, we'll cut this grant. So that's the mentality that we are dealing with, as a matter of fact.
I just wanted to ask a question surrounding, earlier you were talking about how it's not a religious issue, and I really, that resounds with me just because, okay, like straight up, I'm Jewish, so I was, but I think that as I've kind of gone outside of the box of what I was taught, I think it really does seem that for the Jews and maybe for the Israelis, it's become a Jewish issue because it's the Jewish nation. When I see the Western settlements, I see Jewish people trying to claim. And so I guess my question is, is there a dimension at which it is a Jewish issue, if not a Jewish or another religion issue? And then the other question is, how can Jews participate in a peace movement without feeling as though they're negating themselves? Because that kind of question that the man asked earlier about where will the Jews go, that question, where will the Jews go, that sums up in essence this feeling like, oh, if I support you, I'm negating myself. So how can I support without negating?
Okay, thanks for both questions. And let me start with the second question. Are they Jewish that supports Palestinians? As I mentioned, I have partnership with 5 Israelis/Jewish organizations. And I mentioned my dear friend Jeff Halber, who is an Israeli also. He's a professor of anthropology at Haifa University. And we work together. We take, let's say, Beit Shalom, for example, is another organization that I work with. So are they Jewish organization? Yes, they are in existence, and you can be, or you can become involved in something like that also and help, because guess what? Look at you and look at me. Both of us are human beings, regardless whether you are Jewish or Palestinian, Christian, Muslim, Jew, it doesn't matter. We are human beings at the end. Okay, God created all of us. So the issue is an issue of respect. If I know who you are and you know who I am, and we have that mutual respect, there would be no problem, I think. And as simple as that, that's what I would say. So to negate your identity, I don't see it this way, because you can get involved really with already existing organizations here. In the United States, for example, there are peace movements here, Israeli peace movements, and J Street, for example. J Street is now becoming stronger and stronger and trying to fight AIPAC. And both are, again, let's remember, Jewish or Israelis. So you can get involved, really. I mean, that's part of it. The first question, I think, before I answer your question, I would like to ask you a question. Would you like to see Israel as a democracy or as a Jewish state? Because they cannot be both.
Exactly.
They cannot be both. Now, if you want Israel to be a democracy, okay, the idea of this state has to be based on the Jewish faith, and if you are not Jewish, you have no rights, you will become second-class citizen or something like that. That's not a democracy. So they don't go together. And to me, when I hear some people, tell me or ask me sometimes, oh, you know what? But Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. My response to that will say, well, I don't see it this way, because a true democracy will not occupy people or a whole nation for 60 years, for example. A true democracy will not build their country based on a religious idea. A true democracy will not build, again, an apartheid wall. A true democracy will not confiscate lands, imprison people, use the collective punishment to punish the people, and so on. So that's what a true democracy means for me. So for Israel, they have to choose. Either we want to be really a true democracy or a Jewish state. But you cannot have both. Can you imagine, and this is something that I would like to say. Can you imagine the US saying, okay, we are a Christian country? Can you imagine that? I mean, I cannot, even though I'm Christian. I'm Christian. But I cannot imagine the US saying we are, a Christian nation. So.
I say it every day. And it was a judge who ruled because of a Christmas creche, with the tree and so forth. He said this is a Christian country. And nobody argued about it. But the problem is, I still say if you ask for one, you'll get two. You'll get bargained down to what you want. Because the Palestinians are weak. So this is what you do. And when you raise hell about, we want one state, they say, wait, no, we can't have this. And one thing, too, you're fighting the cultural myth of the Bible in the beginning. See, the Arabs don't have that cultural myth connected with that piece of ground. So this is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there are different opinions here on this issue. Some say, okay, we should be like a one state. I will tell you one thing. The Israelis will not accept that for demographic reasons. We Arabs are well known that we have big families, mainly, and nothing wrong about that, versus the Jewish or the Israelis have smaller families. So at some point, when you have more Palestinian Arabs, versus more Israelis or Jewish. So of course, Israelis themselves, I don't suspect they will ever accept this idea. Now again, and I would like to clarify something. We stand as a person who has been involved with politics for all these years, as a person who represents the Americans and Palestinians for peace, and as a person who has good relation with the Palestinian Authority, okay, I want to just clarify one thing. When I say I want my independent homeland, I'm talking about Palestine of 1967, and I'm not willing to give up 1 inch of 1967, no matter what. Now, let's remember that we gave up 72% of historic Palestine in 1948. So we're just talking about 28 of historic Palestine. And I think we have every right to say, I want to establish my independent country and homeland on the 1967. Even 1967, which is the 28% of the historic Palestine, already more than 40% of that are gone for something called illegal settlements and the apartheid wall. So, and they are still bargaining for more. They're still bargaining for more. And I think no one, the Israelis will never find someone who will sign a deal with them on something like that. There's no way.
Have you ever done labor negotiations?
I did. I have been the chief negotiator on behalf of all my teachers at the Eastern Iowa Community Colleges for the past 15 years.
Well, don't you always ask for more than you know you're going to get?
Yes, I agree with you.
And you
But
drive a hard bargain like the Arabs are famous for. But when it comes to Israel, you don't drive the bargain.
that,
They take the time. They will bargain with themselves when they set up a boss. Who is a boss?
Yeah.
He didn't represent the people. And they created Hamas.
yeah,
Israel created Hamas, and now Hamas is out of hand, and now they want to complain.
and I will tell you one thing. Let's also be realistic and see the difference between bargaining a labor contract and bargaining, of course, an independent or the establishment of a country. I mean, really, they are not the same. I mean, it's not the same. I don't want to, I mean, I want to go and ask for what I, as a person, and I, as Palestinian, again, feel that these are, you know, the guidelines for us. These are what we call the red lines that no one else can really can give up. For example, as I said, would you ever find someone among Palestinians who will give up the right to have East Jerusalem as our capital? I bet you on anything, you will never find one.
Okay. Professor Dabeet, I wonder if you could assess 3 different options for peace that seem to be on the table right now. One favored by Washington, the Obama administration, seems to be the path of direct negotiations. A second path that seems to be pursued now by the Palestine Authority and al-Fatah is a UN strategy of where more and more countries, beginning in Latin America and proceeding perhaps into European countries and elsewhere, will recognize a sovereign Palestine within the 1967 borders. And this is supposed to come to a head perhaps in September of this year. The third strategy is more of a tactical one proposed by Mustafa Barghouti and others, which is boycott, sanctions, and divestment as a way for international civil society to put pressure on the Israeli state, which is rapidly expanding its settlements and doesn't seem to have any intention of actually giving them up. Could you just assess these 3 different strategies for us? Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. I would like to, that's really a great question. Let's take the first one, the U.S. They want to have a direct negotiation. Well, let's face it. It has been a failing. It has been a failing way of bringing both into the table. Failing policy. As I mentioned, and maybe I failed to say that, I was in supportive of Oslo Agreement because, as I said, I was involved from day one. Was in D.C. Every time that